As soon as today, the Trump administration is expected to announce that it is suspending planning of major joint military drills with South Korea. This was set to happen in August. Let's go to the Pentagon. Barbara Starr is there with more. And Barbara, as we talked about yesterday, we know that the president's announcement that he had agreed to suspend these military drills came as a surprise, needless to say, to the South Koreans. But now the planned exercises in August are off.
Well, we don't know if they're completely off just yet, but it's headed in that direction. This may be the first major announcement implementing what the president wanted to have happen post the Singapore summit, all the things that he announced there. What we do know is that the Trump administration is expected to announce it is suspending planning for this August exercise, military exercise in South Korea that would involve 17,000 U.S. troops. This is something they have done every year. It's a regularly scheduled combat drill. President Trump referring to it as so-called war games. So we expect the announcement that they are suspending planning for it. But look, you can't go much longer without making that public decision to just call it off, because there's a lot of, ships, aircraft, personnel that have to be scheduled, that have to be put in place. The question is really what comes next. The South Koreans are saying they want consultations on all of this. We expect the announcement could come after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo returns to the United States in the next 24 hours or so. The Pentagon looking for ways to implement what the president wants to have happen, but not to give up all of their training and readiness efforts, all of their ability to be able to defend South Korea in a crisis from the Pentagon point of view. That's what these drills are all about. Poppy?
Barbara Starr at the Pentagon, thank you so much. And before I go to our next guest, take a look at this. We have these images just coming to us out of Beijing, and you see that too, Barbara. That is Secretary of State Mike Pompeo meeting with President Xi of China, obviously a key party in these discussions with North Korea as they continue. We'll bring you more on that, of course, the readout of the meeting when we have it. Let's bring in CNN military and diplomatic analyst and Rear Admiral John Kirby and CNN counterterrorism analyst Phil Mudd. Nice to have you both here. Admiral Kirby, considering that you were also the spokesperson at the Pentagon and you know political speak, what do you make of the president's answers? Because Bret Baier gave him two chances to condemn the human rights atrocities carried out by the Kim regime, and he didn't do it.
Yeah, Bret was really trying to get him, I think, to go there, and he just, as you said, wouldn't do it. I think what you're seeing is Trump's ham-fisted way of implementing what's known as the Sunshine Policy. This is, to many, what we're seeing is actually not so much Trump, but Xi and Moon Jae-in's influence on Trump. This is the Sunshine Policy in action, where you praise North Koreans, you give them legitimacy, you give them concessions, a big one in suspending these exercises, in the hopes that they will open up. And then by opening up, you can get them to start to whittle back their nuclear program. This is the Sunshine Policy in implementation, and it hasn't worked yet. The Sunshine Policy is great on paper, but it hasn't been successful. We'll have to see what the next round of negotiations produce with Mike Pompeo there. But what you're really seeing here, I think, is President Xi and President Moon Jae-in's influence on Donald Trump.
Saying don't ruffle the feathers. Phil Mudd, do you think that there is any logical rationale or reason to give President Trump, the benefit of the doubt here? Because he really is seemingly giving a pass to a murderous dictator.
I can see this halfway. I wouldn't go into those negotiations about one issue, that is the nuclear issue, and put everything into the conversation, including human rights. That said, in other words, the president should be walking and saying, we have some serious issues on the table, not critiquing, I think, his counterpart across the table. The problem with this conversation is he seems to go out of the way to praise Kim Jong-un. I don't know why he's doing that. There is a further disadvantage to that. Mike Pompeo is talking to the Chinese. The Russians are watching this closely. If you're the Chinese and the Russians looking at what the president said and what he tweeted when he got off the plane saying Americans should sleep safer tonight, why wouldn't you, as the Chinese are suggesting, say, well, if it went so well, why don't we start releasing sanctions now? If you're so comfortable with Kim Jong-un, why don't we start lifting now? I think the president is opening the door to an even softer policy.
Right, which Secretary of State Pompeo made very clear that they won't lift those sanctions until they see actual verifiable denuclearization. Admiral.
Yeah, well, no, I think Phil raises a really important point, because you've already seen the Russians and the Chinese say, hey, look, it went great, so let's ease up on the sanctions. If we had gotten more out of this summit, the United States, then I can kind of understand sort of moving the sunshine policy forward. I agree with Phil, you shouldn't be lauding this guy, but I can understand the sort of softer rhetoric, but we didn't get anything out of it. So we are already giving an awful lot, and we've got very little in return. Go ahead.
It's not the first time the president has done this, gentlemen. As you know, let's remember that interview about a year ago with Bill O'Reilly on Fox News when he said this about Vladimir Putin.
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him.
Do you? Why?
Well, I respect a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. I say it's better to get along with Russia than not.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
Phil Mudd, how does that play on the world stage when the president has now done this not just once, not just twice, but 3 times? He did it twice in this interview with Bear.
Oh, he's done it more than 3 times. The pattern is pretty straightforward. This is a president who likes to portray himself as a tough guy. Look at the tough guys he's associated with in the Philippines, in Turkey, in Egypt, in China, now in North Korea. Look at the Democrats he's isolated, including the leader of Canada, who he just insulted a few days ago. He's also insulted, I think, people like the other Europeans, the British, the French. He insulted Angela Merkel on immigration. So he's clearly said tough guys who can implement the rule of law and provide security without democracy are fine. Democrats who disagree with me, not so much. The pattern to me is pretty simple.
But to what end, Admiral?
Well, I think to his end, he thinks that, this is how you negotiate with brutal dictatorships, with authoritarian regimes. You flatter them and you temporize with them and you try to get the concessions out of them that way rather than beating them up over a head. And his argument is it hasn't worked in the past. With previous administrations have been tough on our adversaries and it doesn't work. But I think it's a short-sighted strategy, and it's actually completely opposed to our values. And what's missing in our foreign policy right now is values. It's all binary and transactional with this guy, and there's no adherence or promotion of U.S. values going forward.
Phil, let me get your take finally on Secretary Pompeo. So he seemed outraged yesterday at a reporter's question about why the words verifiable and irreversible about denuclearization were not in that joint agreement, the statement out of the North Korea summit. And he said that it is ridiculous and frankly ludicrous to ask that question. His argument is that using the term confident in the agreement, they're confident they're going to work towards denuclearization, that's the same thing. Who's right?
Look, Mike Pompeo is a serious guy. I can understand why he said that, but give me a break. We have a 100-plus document with the Iranians detailing how they're supposed to comply with the program to cap their nuclear progress over the next 15 to 25 years. That's not good enough. The president signs a document with Kim Jong-un that says basically nothing, walks off the plane and says we won, and Mike Pompeo says I'm ticked that you guys wanted more. Give me a break. Of course we want more, because the president said we had a victory with the North Koreans after 70 years of isolation in the wake of a cup of coffee with Kim Jong-un. It doesn't make any sense.
The language that Pompeo used in his own tweet last week was complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization. Gentlemen, thanks for being here this morning. Phil Mudd and Admiral John Kirby. I appreciate it.